need all of you, by the time I'm done with this message, to do something with your phone. So make sure if you want to take a second now just to get it out, sit it next to you. Don't play games while I'm going over this for the next 30 minutes. But if you have it close by, it's going to help you out quite a bit. So just get that phone close by. We've had kind of an amazing fall around here. I hope you've been around for a lot of it. We finished At the Movies a couple of weeks ago. That was so much fun. Right before that, we did One at a Time, which I think is one of the most transforming series that we've experienced as a church. So if you were new during At the Movies, make sure you go back and watch online, One at a Time. But next week, I'm starting a new 3-week series that I think deals with the most common element that holds people back in life. It is probably the element that's holding you back in life right now. And just to tease it out a little bit, actually within the first 5 or 6 pages of the Bible, we receive essentially the problem, the diagnosis, and the solution for overcoming this thing that just grabs us and holds us back. So I can't wait to share that with you beginning next week and for a couple of weeks after that. So like some of you, I'm in my 40s. So far, 40s are my favorite decade of life. It's been pretty great. I remember when I was young, I had someone who was much older, and by much older, I mean definitely in their 50s or above. But I was young, and they were kind of talking to me about the seasons of life from their perspective, and so far this has checked out for me, so it checks out for you. They said, Greg, the 20s can be kind of rough. You're kind of new into adulting, and everything is comparison. You're seeing, am I getting along further than my friends are? Am I meeting the expectation of my parents? Am I chasing my dreams as I was all told I should do in high school and college? Am I making it? And there's a lot of pressure in your 20s to kind of live in that comparison life. And then this person told me that, after 50, I'm not there yet, but this is what they tell me. After 50, you either become a person who is gracious or a person who's grouchy. There's not very much in between. And you should prepare for that a little bit, or maybe you should diagnose yourself right now to say if you're over 50, like, which am I? Did I become gracious in old age, or did I become a grouch? And I think that's interesting. But this person told me, he said, in your 30s and 40s, it's a pretty great season of life because you've lived enough life that you don't have to play that comparison game anymore. You don't have to go to your 10th high school reunion and see, hey, did I make it ahead of everybody else? You're in a stage of life that's settled in a little bit. Hopefully you're feeling comfortable in your own skin. You're still early enough in life that if you need to reset, you can. Life is not over. But you're also far enough along in life where you can look ahead a little bit and think, I want to make sure I'm prepared for whatever that next season is. Yes, being prepared to be gracious, not grouchy. But also maybe to look ahead, this is how I envision it, to my 60s and think, I just want to make sure I'm on solid ground there. I don't need to be an all-star, right? You want to be prepared financially, right? I don't need to be a millionaire. I don't. But I just want to make sure things are solid, and now's a good season to kind of set the course in that direction. You might do that spiritually. You might do that physically. It's interesting when you kind of look ahead physically. One of the things you do in your 30s and 40s is when given the opportunity, you kind of give yourself a little test physically, like, do I still have it? Or do I just need to move on from that? So, just let you in on this. Some of you saw this online. But a few weeks ago, we had those warp walls up in the commons area. And I walked into the commons area, and there were some of our staff in there. And it wasn't a Sunday morning. There was nobody else around except staff with cameras, of course. And I thought, I'm kind of curious whether I can do that or not. And let me show you the video of my attempt to do that. Here it is. Slow motion, of course, helps for the effects and the sound effects. And so close. And yet so far away. Ouch, right there. Yeah, actually, after I tried that, we added more mats out into the back before we allowed the rest of you to try it. It was kind of a miserable experience. But right after that, I thought, I was so close. So I got right back up, and I did try it again. This is that video.
Right?
Thanks, Mitch, for adding that music in the background. I appreciate that. So you kind of put yourself into tests like this. But here's the thing. For me, physically, at this stage of life, I've started to notice some things. Thank you for that. And I mean, some of you are at this stage, so you start to think like, my dad died young, and he hadn't taken care of himself the best, so maybe I should take care of myself better. I start to notice some things where like I've had a couple like kind of weird balance things, a little physical therapy, took right care of it, but I'm like, I wish that wasn't happening right now. And you kind of get into a mode like, I want to take steps into being healthy. And so when someone wants to take steps into being healthy, like, I mean, physically healthy, this is what I did, this is probably what you do. I went and joined the Y, right? I thought, I'm gonna work out a little bit. I'm gonna get into shape. Like, I don't need to be a bodybuilder. We're not gonna win any competitions. I just wanna be healthy. And what happened is when I joined the Y, I went there and I walked around the machines they have and the weights they have, and I walked around thinking, I don't know how to do this. Have you ever been there? I think, I'm just gonna walk on the track. I know how to do that. I'm gonna walk on the track. And so I thought, I'm gonna need some help if I'm gonna do this. It looks so easy to everyone who's already doing it, but to me, it didn't look easy at all. And so I have a son who's in the Marines. He loves to work out. He is like bodybuilder, sort of look. And I'm like, hey, Terrell, would you help me out a little bit? He's like, Dad, I'd love to help you out. And he puts together this whole regiment plan, and he emails it to me. And it's like, hey, this many sets and this many reps, and do these RDLs. And I'm like, he really wanted to help me, but I don't know what sets are, and I don't know what reps are, and I definitely didn't know what RDLs are, Romanian deadlifts. I did learn that over time. And I'm like, he was trying to help, but it didn't help, actually. Because it didn't help me get started with it and feel comfortable that I could actually do this myself. And then we had a guy in our church, and he knew that I was starting to go to the Y. I think he saw me there just walking on the track, like, Greg, you should do more than that. And he's like, hey, I'll help you out. And he literally took me to the machines, and he showed me how to do the machine. And then he said, now you try it. And we got the weights kind of right. And so all of a sudden, I mean, you've been in these situations before, like, instead of being nervous that I don't really know what I'm doing and everyone's probably looking at me and people are wiping down the machines, I don't even know what those cloths are for, and I'm probably putting the wrong amount of weight on. Like I didn't really know what I was doing, but when I had someone who was there, who showed me how to do it, who did it, and then led me to do it, I'm like, I can do this. And so I learned how to do the machines. He's like, all right, let's go to some free weights. And he took me to those free weights. And I mean, when he was with me, I could do the free weights. And then here's the problem. After just a couple of months of me working out with that guy, and he'd be on me. He's like, Greg, we gotta go early morning on Tuesday. Greg, you're gonna be there Saturday. Then he moved. And after he moved, I thought, I'm gonna keep doing this, which I did for about a week and a half. And now it's all faded to the background. And the reason I tell you that story is because I see so many parallels in my experience with that as I try to lead people spiritually and have conversations about how to really know God, how to really have an experience with God, how to have a faith that's robust, how to be strong in your life. I see people who want to have a life. Like people look around and they see other people who are spiritually healthy, and they see how they carry themselves, and they think, I would want that life, but they don't actually know how to do it. I see people who are navigating life right now, and they think, I'm gonna need some strength for some valleys that I know are coming, or the valley I'm in right now, or they think, I'm gonna need some wisdom for raising kids, or in this marriage thing that's so perplexing sometimes, or they get in situations where they think, I just need God. But maybe like me, they think, I want that, I need it, I'd like to be there in life, but I don't actually know how it works. And when I come into church, it's kind of helpful. I see people who think they kind of have it together, but it's almost like sets and reps and RDLs, and like, I don't actually know how. I hesitate to jump in because I'd be embarrassed. So today, I actually want to take some time and do a message that I used to try to do every year, but I looked up earlier this year, I'm like, it's been years since I've done this. And it's just my best effort to help you see what it would actually look like to grow in your faith. To give you some real handles, some real practical things, some things that are possible for you to do so that you can grow stronger and stronger in your faith. So I'm going to give you 3 questions to guide this message. And I think by the time we're done, I hope you'll be in a place where you have some confidence to step into some of these practices, and you'll be a better place a year from now, and certainly 5 and 10 years from now, than you are right now with your faith in God. So here's question number 1. What are the fundamentals of following Jesus? I want to make sure we all have the context for this. Around here, we have a conviction that God, the actual God of the universe, the one who created the world, is revealed to us in the scriptures. And the best revelation of God, so that we can understand who God is Jesus himself. You hear us say all the time around here that Jesus is at the center of everything we do. And maybe the most beautiful and wild and inspiring thing to me about who God is that when there was a distance between us and God, he closed the distance by sending his son into the world so he could be with us. And he could actually show us in real life on this earth what it means to put certain practices into your life, to link yourself with God, to become more godly, and to find that strength and wisdom and foundation that you can really have in life. And so we refer to that simply as following Jesus. And there's lots of ways to think about how did Jesus live his life, but if you spend just a little time, you will come to the conclusion that it kind of falls into 4 categories that any one of us can start to practice in our own life. The first category is this: to cultivate a trust relationship with God. Now, at the beginning of any spiritual growth understanding that any of you would have in a healthy way, it is to understand God is relational. I think more than anything else, what Jesus taught us is that God is a father to us, that he knows you and he loves you and he wants to walk with you and he wants to guide you and he wants to forgive you, that God is fundamentally relational. Now, Jesus came into a religious world where the whole religious system had reduced itself simply to rules, mostly moral rules, rights and wrongs. And Jesus had to undo that. It's possible that you had grown up in a system in the same way where you think spirituality is mostly about morality, that it's right and wrong and it's rules to follow, and that's what it means to be a Christian. But it's not what it means to be a Christian. What it means to be a Christian is that I've formed a relationship with God where I trust him. And like with any relationship, that means it can't be forced. It's not formulaic, A plus B equals C. No relationships are like that. It's something that you foster in your life. You cultivate a relationship where you trust God. And there's practices that you can put into your life. Practices like solitude, quietness, listening to God. Practices like reading the scriptures, but not reading them hoping to accomplish a certain amount of reading each day. Just reading them in such a way that you'd read until you sense God is saying something to you. And then you just pause and reflect a little bit and encounter God. And the ways that helps us grow the most is when we encounter God saying something to us and we look at our own life and I'm like, yeah, but that's not how I'm doing it. And then we have a choice to make as to whether to trust God or to trust ourselves. Maybe the fundamental verse we would get from Jesus' life that gets at this cultivating thing is actually when he's in the garden, about to go to the cross to accomplish his mission on planet Earth, to die for us and eventually to be resurrected. And in his conversation with his Father, this is what he says. He says, Father, if you're willing, let this cup, let this responsibility pass from me. God, I don't want to do this. Father, you're my dad. I know you care about me. You're asking me to do something difficult. I don't want to do it. Is there a different way? You can talk to your dad that way. You can talk to your dad that way. But then ultimately, you do say, well, I have a way, God, and you have a way. I have a will, and you have a will. I'm going to choose yours. Not my will, but yours be done. That's cultivating this trust relationship with God. And it happens in small ways in our lives all the time. And you can get to those moments with God, and it changes everything. The second practice that we see from Jesus is to contribute by serving. My best friend constantly reminds me of this. He says, Greg, when I am in a spiritual funk, I know it's time to go serve. I know it's time to go serve. I know it's time to go do something that's not for myself, but for someone else. And it does something inside of me. This is, of course, who Jesus himself was. He actually teaches us that there's something spiritual that happens when you take your focus off yourself, which all of us are prone to do, and place it on the needs of someone else, or a chance to help somebody else grow, or to invest my life in the next generation somehow, and go and serve to bring about God's kingdom and the beauty of his help for other people. A lot of people think, for some reason, they think, oh, well, I need to grow, so then I'll be ready to go serve. But I tell people all the time, no, that's not how it works. If you need to grow, go serve. It will grow you in your walk with God because you'll become more like God. It was Jesus who said this. He defined his life this way. The Son of Man didn't come to be served, but to serve. The rest of that sentence is, and give his life as a ransom for many. And a lot of you have experienced this at moments in your life where you think, you know what, I actually never felt more alive than when I was doing something to serve someone else who couldn't pay me back. I'm like, yes, you are close to the kingdom of God when you're serving. And it's actually a double bonus that I'll explain in a little while. Third, what Jesus did was he cared about lost people. And this is something that we kind of have to nurture in our lives, because one of the things that happens once you kind of get connected in a church and start to do some of these healthy practices, almost in ways you can't avoid at first, you kind of get sucked into a circle of other people who are all marked by faith. And there's some good things about that, because you need that encouragement and that strength and to be there with one another. But I don't know anything that will stunt your spiritual growth more than to isolate yourself from the needs of the world, from people who are hurting and broken and confused and lost. And one of the things Jesus was constantly encouraging people to do if they were going to grow in their faith is to care about lost people. You know the parable of the lost sheep where 99 are fine, one's wandered off. He says, hey, here's what you should do. Go help the one who wandered off. You know the parable of the lost son, or the prodigal son, where a son, basically says, Dad, I don't need you. He goes and wastes all his money, messes up his life, and then he comes home, and the posture is, oh, I just want to be there for the one who is lost and will come home. It was Jesus who said, after an encounter with Zacchaeus, who was curious and lost himself, the Son of Man came to seek and save the lost. So it's interesting to me that sometimes in other settings, maybe you've seen this, sometimes spiritual growth gets measured by like how tight your bubble is of other followers of Jesus, or how much of the Bible you know. But that's not really it. If you want to grow, you have to have regular encounters with people who are disconnected from God, who are lost. And then the fourth habit is this: to connect in life-changing relationships. God is relational. You, don't miss this about yourself. This is how God created you. He created you to be relational. And he actually, in his grand plan, created a group of people, a body, a church, it's called, to be relational with. Now, if you want a fast track to a spiritual growth that dies on the vine, here's what I would suggest. Go consume a lot of content, but do it without connection. Keep listening to sermons. Make sure you download some Christian podcasts in your car, do some worship, do all those things, but just do them by yourself and don't do it with anyone else. And such an approach is guaranteed to keep you isolated. So, the scriptures have all these encouragements to grow in your faith by saying, love one another, serve one another, encourage one another, admonish one another, spur on one another toward love and good deeds. To think that I could grow in my faith in God without a community of people around me, it's just false. Jesus actually, when he was also preparing to go to the cross, he just said it this way. He said, just as I've loved you, go love one another. So when you start to think, oh, how would I grow in my faith? Those four things are the markers of Jesus' life you could use them as a test for yourself to say, hey, how am I doing in that area? But even better, they're actually just designed as practices to say, hey, take a step in that. That'll help you grow. Take a step in that. That will help you grow. So let me push pause there for a second and ask question number 2. This is kind of a separate question. Question number 2 is, where am I on the journey? Now, I'm just about to describe 4 categories of what I see a pretty common spiritual progression. And just after I describe these, I just want you to put yourself into one of these 4 categories. One of the things the scriptures describe, and I'm sure you've experienced in life, is that faith is never static. You don't stay in the same place. You're growing, perhaps you're declining. It happens to all of us in life. But one of the ways the scriptures talk about how the progression of our life could work is to say things like this. And scriptures say, well, when I was a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child, I behaved like a child. But when I became a man, when I became a woman, I put childish things behind. There's a progression. There's a journey to this. One of the things the scriptures talk about is how, as a spiritual infant, you would need milk. But after a little while, you don't need milk anymore. It would be then solid food. And actually, in one spot in the scriptures, the writer of the scriptures gives some people in a church a very hard time because he says, by now you should be teachers, but you still need milk. He's like, pay attention to this journey. One of the ways we talk about journey around here, I try to say often is, God loves you just the way you are. And he loves you too much to leave you just the way you are. So let me describe these 4 categories. Some of you are here and you are not a follower of Jesus. You're curious about it. You're a seeker, maybe a spiritual seeker in that way. Or honestly, maybe you're just a supporter. What I mean by that is your wife or your husband comes to church here. They're interested. You're just being a good wife or a good husband. Listen, I get it. I'm actually glad that this category of people populates our church in a rather substantial way. I want people to find this to be a safe place where they can go on this journey, where they can ask their questions before they commit themselves to following Jesus, to really check it out and ask it and have their questions answered. It's part of the DNA of our church. This is why all the time when I teach, I try to say, hey, for those of you who are followers of Jesus, this way. If you're not a follower of Jesus, you should receive it this way. I try to split the room in that divide. And it's so interesting to me because people who come in and know that they're curious or seekers or supporters, like they know. They're like, yeah, just, Greg, I'm not a follower of Jesus. I haven't defined my life that way. But I've also come across people who hear me describe that these 2 ways all the time. Well, if you're a follower of Jesus, that means this. If you're not a follower of Jesus, and they thought they were a follower of Jesus, but every time I divide the room like that, they're like, yeah, I'm not doing the thing followers of Jesus do. And one of my mentors said to me once, he said, hey, you have new people come into your church, just treat them like they're Christians until they realize they're not. Until they realize they're not. And I want you to know, it's okay to be here and not be a Christian. I do have a desire. This is my heart's desire. It's one of my prayers all the time, is that people who are curious and seekers and supporters would take steps forward in the journey and find this life of following Jesus. Second group of people are like, hey, people who are kind of beginning this faith journey. Or returners. You may have grown up in church or had a little exposure, Christmas, Easter, that sort of thing, and enough context to know how to walk in the doors. But this is all fairly new to you at this stage. But something's happened in your life, something's jostled you and makes you think, maybe church, maybe God, maybe faith, maybe that would help. Maybe that would make me stronger. Maybe that would give me something I don't have. And people who are here, they've started leaning into this following Jesus thing. And like almost anything that's new, there's some excitement to it. There's some like, this is new, it's fresh. I feel something that I haven't felt before. And I think that's beautiful. This is a stage where people actually define something about their lives and they say, no, I am a follower of Jesus. I got a long ways to go. I have a long ways to go. I got a lot to grow. There's so much I don't know, but I am a follower of Jesus. That's what I'm aiming my life that way. And when you take that step, it's a beautiful step. It's the most life-changing of all steps that you could possibly take. And it's the step where you would be baptized. I don't know if you've ever thought about that, but if you're in this new category where you say, I've defined myself as a follower of Jesus, you haven't been baptized yet, you should just talk to us about that because we would love to just have that marker of burying that old life and being raised to walk a new life. So a lot of people, our church has grown so much since COVID, and I think a lot of the crowd is this crowd. Third, there are people who are following, they're kind of frustrated. It's this dance of me and God. And, I see this often enough where the newness, the freshness wears off. I mean, you do go through the motions. You have some habits, and God is real to you. It's not that you don't pray or attend, anything like that. But honestly, maybe it feels like a little bit of a slump. And it's frustrating because experiences that used to be fresh and new, they don't feel fresh and new anymore. And maybe some days you're motivated to get back to that, but honestly, some days you're kind of not. And, one of the ways I describe life with God is it is a me and God life, but at this level, it's a me and God life, but mostly me. I mean, it's me and God, but it's mostly me. I mean, when I come up against those things where I think God wants me to do this, but I kind of want to do this, I just usually do the thing I want to do. Then there's this fourth category, which is a faithful, fruitful, me and God life. Jesus describes the faithful part of this. He says, there's a lot of people who hear my words and they don't put them into practice. It's like their life is built on the sand. And they're fine until the storms of life that inevitably will come, and then things collapse. But not these people, They've heard these words of Jesus, and they've put them into practice, and their life is built on a rock. And the storms do come. We all get the same storms. It doesn't matter. Like, being a Christian doesn't keep you from the storms. But you stand through the storms. And you're still standing when they're done. There's some strength, something internal about you that's different. And it's fruitful. And by fruitful, I don't mean you accomplish amazing things. I'm actually talking about the fruit of the Spirit in your life, because as you think about God, when Jesus left this earth, what God gave to each of us was his Spirit. And this is just a simple passage in Galatians 5. It says, the fruit of the Spirit is love and joy, peace and patience and kindness and goodness and gentleness and faithfulness and self-control. And maybe you know people like this. Maybe you are a person like this. You'd be like, yeah, that's me. Like, I'm a joy-filled person. Even when circumstances aren't happy, I have this joy. Yeah, I'm a patient person who can endure many things. That's what actually comes in this kind of maturity that comes in Christ. Yes, I'm a loving person. I'm a kind person, even to people who aren't kind to me. I'm a gentle person. I've gotten rid of that temper and gotten rid of that anger. That's who I am. And it's a beautiful life. Some of you know people like this. And this also is a me and God life, but it's mostly God. That's the difference. You see, even when I think about a couple of contrasts between these two, I think, the person in category 3, when they hear like, oh, what would it look like to give your life to some aspect of service and commit yourself to that? They want to, but then they look at their schedule and they decide they can't. But people in category 4, they want to, and they look at their schedule and they're like, well, I can't do it if I don't change my schedule. And then they change their schedule so as to prioritize the contribute by serving. It's just a totally different way. This is the me and God life, but mostly me. And this is the me and God life, but mostly God. And I promise you, it's just the most beautiful spiritual experience you can have. It's not easy, but it's good. And there's a vision for this. This is actually how the Apostle Paul writes about it in Ephesians. He says, then we'll no longer be infants, tossed back and forth by the waves. Instead, speaking the truth in love, we'll grow up to become, in every respect, the mature body of Christ. So with that in mind, let me give you a vision so that we can help you, I think, the best that Suncrest possibly can. The third question is, how can Suncrest help? And I have 2 answers to this. This isn't a right answer and a wrong answer. It's a lesser answer and a greater answer. So here's answer number 1. We can provide impersonal care and guidance in the 4 C's. And by impersonal, I mean you can pick it up while you're here. So this is not a secret. Let me tell you as briefly as I can how we've designed our whole church. We basically look at it like this. There are lots of people who come in and they attend our church, all of you. And that's really their only connection to our church. They're not on a serving team. They're not part of a group. They're not relationally connected in an ongoing way. They attend our church. I'm very grateful that all of you are here. And I always think like, oh, if that's you, what Suncrest can provide is an impersonal, not personal, care and guidance. And we have these 4 C's. Let me run through them real quick again. We have the idea of cultivating a relationship with God. And you'll hear me talk from the platform like, hey, here's a Bible reading plan you can do. Here's how you could pray. Here's a practice for solitude. Here's how to let God get your attention. I'll teach those things, and you get led, with some content, not with a relationship. And then there's things like contribute by serving. And we try to provide like first steps into that. We want you to have a day where you can come do a wall build. It's just 3 hours, come and do it. There's a weekend, a for the region thing in the spring. Let's all go out and serve for a few hours together. Like there's steps you can take in, but it's not really relational. It's just one step. And then there's, the idea of caring about people far from God. And you may not really know how to do that, and you don't have anyone to show you or model how to do that, but you hear me tell you should do that. So you think about it. And then there's connecting in life-changing relationships, which of course is kind of the missing component. And the way we think about it is, that's kind of, I'll just speak for myself, that's kind of my responsibility to you. If you come and attend whatever you randomly get on whatever weekends you're here, hopefully it will help you grow in some way. And people have genuine spiritual experiences in this room. It can be beautiful, but if it's not connected in a life-changing relationship, most often it's a spike and then a fizzle. So the way we like to do it is to provide personal care and guidance in the 4 C's. And the way that works around here is we work our tails off to develop leaders on top of leaders on top of leaders who are prepared, they're sitting right next to you right now, but they are prepared to help guide you in the 4 C's. They want to have a relationship with you and help you know that you're loved and accepted and warmly welcomed here. That's what we lead our leaders to do. And our way of doing that is, we tell you, hey, we want you to be in a group. We had like 100 people move into groups earlier this fall when we did one-at-a-time groups, and then, kind of took that forward. It's just a beautiful thing. But the other element for us is that we have teams that serve. And while you serve, this is kind of the double benefit. It reorients your life away from yourself and toward helping others. And you get to make a difference. You get to have something meaningful with your life all at the same time. So, what I want to do, wrapping up today, is to offer all of you the chance, if you're in a place right now where you're attending, but you're not connected in a group or on a serving team, that you could shift from that into a place to serve. So would you do me a favor right now? Would you grab your phone and grab that card that's on your seat? Do both of those right now. Now, here's one of the ways we think about this, because our serving teams all have a leader and they're connected that spiritually. We don't ask people. In fact, we ask people not to serve in more than one team. Right? We really just want you to serve one place and go deep, invest there. So some of you in this room are on a serving team at Suncrest right now. And I have something very specific I want you to do with your phone. I want you to text whoever your leader is at Suncrest and just say thank you. If you're on a serving team, you know who your leader is. You probably have their number. Just text them right now and say thank you. If you don't have a serving team right now, I want to ask you to do something else. Would you take your phone and scan the QR code that's right here? All of you, just do it with me. It would humor me just for a second. You'll get the chance in the end whether you hit submit or not, but let's all just play this game together right now. Okay, if you're not on a serving team right now, just scan this thing with me, right? You know how to do that? All right. Look, when you do it, it's going to come up with a screen that looks a lot like this. Beautiful. And here's what I want to ask you to do. I want to ask you to think about whether you'd join a serving team at Suncrest. And first page, easy. We will not spam you. Just name, first name, phone number, good. Then go to the second page. And here's what's so fascinating to me. We started paying attention and be like, oh, what are some of the places people could serve? What are some of our greatest needs around here right now? Like we have a lot of needs for people to step into serving teams. And there's 4 of them that rise kind of above all the rest. And for you tonight, like, in fact, this is what I'd encourage you to do. If one of these first 4, you think, I can do that, then just click on that, right? So it's guest experience greeters. This is friendly people at the doors and in the commons area in here. If you're not a friendly person, don't click on that button. You think I'm joking? I'm not joking. I want friendly people to greet newcomers to Suncrest, not grouchy people. Okay, here we go. Second, kids, nursery. Who doesn't love rocking babies? Right? If you think, man, I could do that. Like literally, this is in with the babies. Number 2, we just need some people to do that right now. Third, students, guest experience. So on Monday night, this past Monday night, we had about 80 students here, middle school and high school students. It's a beautiful thing that's happening in our church right now. And when I say I'd like for you to consider serving with students, I don't mean you have to teach them the Bible. That's not what this means. This means we need people to help us create a welcoming environment for those students. And we would love, love, love to plug some people in to that massively growing area for us right now. And then fourth, do you play the drums? Because we need some drummers. We really, really do. And I'm like, I know what happens. You sit there and you think, man, this band is so good. They probably don't need me, but they need you. They do, especially if you're a drummer. So I just want you to think like, oh, if I'm not on a serving team right now, would I go with one of those 4? Or if you look at that list and you're like, hey, those 4, like there wasn't something that clicked for me. Trust me, there are 100 other places to serve around here. And you just click this unsure piece. And if that's you, this is a super user-friendly option where we'll take you to a survey after you click that button, and it'll ask you questions like this. Hey, are you up for serving every week, every other week? What's that look like? It'll talk about days you're available, what kind of gifts that you have, and we'll do our best to match you with another serving area. This is really important to me because contribute by serving is the double bonus. It's the chance for you to make a difference in someone else's life, to create an environment where people could worship, to work with kids who need to be nurtured, to do all those things. And it is one of the pathways to reprioritize your life around other people instead of yourself. When you step into these roles, you have a spiritual leader in your life. And just like I had the guy at the gym, when he sat down, he's like, oh, this is how you do this machine. This is how you do these free weights. And all of a sudden I gained this confidence. That's what our teams and our groups do at Suncrest, to try to help you end up in that category where you got this firm foundation, you are flourishing, you are fruitful, and you're living the God in me life, mostly God. It's a beautiful thing. So I'm actually going to put a 1-minute timer on the screen right now. I want to ask you right now to text that leader that you have if you're already on a serving team. If you're not on a serving team, consider taking your steps through this. You'll see where it goes pretty easy, and we'll follow up with you in the coming week. But after this minute is up, Mitch will come and dismiss us. But right now, just take a minute and work through this.
Narrow as the road may seem, I'll follow where your spirit leads. Broken as my life may be, I will give you every piece. I hear you call, I am available. I say, yes, Lord, I am available. Here I am with open hands, counting on your grace again. Less of me and more of you. I just wanna see you move. I hear you call, I am available. I say, yes, Lord, I am available. I hear you call, I am available. I say, yes, Lord, I am Here I am, here I am. You can have it all, you can have it all. Here I am, here I am. You can have it all, you can have it all. Here I am, here I am. You can have it all, you can have it all. Here I am, here I am. You can have it all, you can have it all. Here I am, here I am. You can have it all, you can have it all. Here I am, here I am. You can have it all, you can have it For the one who gave me life, nothing is a sacrifice. Oh, use me how you want to, God. Have your throne within my heart. I hear you call, I am available. I say, yes, Lord, I am available.
I hope that this has been a meaningful experience for you, even online. And I want you to know that every time that we get together, both online and in person, we include a time of communion. This is a moment for people who follow Jesus to look back on life and remember with gratitude all the amazing things that God has done, our need for God right now, and to look forward with hope, knowing that God is with us every step of the way. So now is the time to get some food and drink to represent Jesus' body and his blood that was broken and poured out for each and every one of us. And during that time, we're going to reflect together. If you don't follow Jesus, that's totally okay. I'm glad that you're checking out this video. Go ahead and use this time to reflect on what you've heard so far. And with that, let's focus on the love of Jesus together. Before you turn off this video, go ahead and hit the like, subscribe, and share button. And I want you to know that this video, this isn't the church. You are. So this week, I hope that you go and make a difference, that you go and be the church.